Most people think driving through the Rocky Mountains is beautiful, even peaceful. But there's one stretch of road in Colorado that locals warn you never to take lightly. It's called the $1 Million Highway, and if you ever find yourself driving it after dark, you'll understand why people call it one of the most terrifying roads in America. I didn't believe the stories until I drove it myself. It happened a few years ago. I was moving cross-country for work and wanted to save time by cutting through the San Juan Mountains. My GPS told me the quickest way was Route 550, the $1 Million Highway. It was late in the afternoon, and I figured I'd be fine if I drove carefully. I couldn't have been more wrong. At first, the road was manageable. The sun dipped low, painting the cliffs gold, and I remember thinking the views were worth the hype. But the further I went, the narrower the road became. Guardrails? Forget it. Most of the time, there was nothing but a painted line separating me from a 1,000-foot drop straight down into the canyon. By the time the sun disappeared completely, I was running on nerves. The darkness in those mountains is like nothing I'd ever experienced. No streetlights, no houses, just my headlights cutting a thin beam through pitch black. Every sharp turn felt like a gamble, every blind corner a threat. I told myself to keep calm, to stay focused. But then I noticed something strange. A pair of red taillights up ahead. At first I was relieved. Finally, another driver. I sped up slightly, wanting the comfort of not being alone out there. But no matter how far I drove, the taillights stayed the same distance ahead. Sometimes they'd disappear around a bend, only to reappear again, glowing faintly through the darkness. After about 20 minutes, I realized I hadn't actually gained on them at all. It was like they were dangling just out of reach. That's when my low fuel warning came on. My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen a gas station for hours, and the idea of being stranded on this road was my worst nightmare. I checked my GPS again, but of course there was no signal. I decided to keep following those taillights. Maybe, just maybe, they'd lead me to the next town. But then something happened that nearly made me slam on the brakes. The taillights drifted, right over the side of the cliff. 1 second they were there, 2 glowing dots in the dark, and the next they were gone. My whole body went cold. I slowed down, creeping forward, my eyes locked on the stretch of road ahead. I half expected to see wreckage, glass, twisted metal. But when I reached the curve, there was nothing. No skid marks, no broken rail, nothing at all. I gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles hurt. I told myself I must have imagined it. Maybe the driver had taken a turnoff I didn't see. But deep down I knew that wasn't true. I pressed on, my nerves shot. Every sound put me on edge. The crunch of gravel under my tires, the groan of the engine on the steep climb, the faint whistle of wind sweeping through the canyon. The higher I went, the more it felt like the road itself didn't want me there. Then, out of nowhere, my headlights caught something on the side of the road. I slowed to a crawl. It was a car. Or what was left of one. The metal was rusted, the windows shattered, weeds growing through its frame. It had clearly been there for years, maybe decades, perched just a few feet from the edge of the drop. I swallowed hard and forced myself to keep going. But as I passed, I noticed something in my mirror. The driver's side door was open, hanging wide as if someone had stepped out just moments before. That's when I realized how quiet it was. Too quiet. No insects, no animals, no other cars. Just me alone on a road that felt more and more like a trap. A few miles later, I rounded another bend and saw headlights coming toward me. Relief hit me like a wave. Finally, another living soul. But as the vehicle got closer, something felt off. It was an old pickup truck, dented and covered in dirt, crawling along at an unnaturally slow speed. As it passed, I glanced at the driver. The man behind the wheel looked straight ahead, his face pale and expressionless. His hands were clamped so tight on the steering wheel that his knuckles looked bone-white. He didn't so much as glance at me. And then he was gone, swallowed by the darkness behind me. I don't know why, but dread washed over me. Something about him didn't feel right. Minutes later, as I rounded another blind curve, my headlights illuminated a shape blocking the road. My heart stopped. It was the same pickup truck. There was no way it could have gotten ahead of me. Not without passing me again, not without me noticing. But there it was, sitting sideways across the lane, its headlights off, the driver's side door hanging open. I slammed on the brakes, my tires screeching as I came to a stop just yards away. My chest felt like it was going to explode. I waited, eyes scanning every shadow, every flicker of movement. But no one ever got out of the truck. Finally, I threw the car in reverse, my hands trembling as I backed up enough to squeeze around it. The cliff edge was inches from my tires, but I didn't care. I just needed to get past. Once I cleared the truck, I floored it. I didn't look in the mirror, didn't stop for anything, just drove as fast as I dared until finally, the faint lights of a small mountain town appeared ahead. When I pulled into the first gas station I saw, I was shaking so badly I could barely get out of the car. I told the attendant what I'd seen. He stared at me for a long time before speaking. "You're not the first," he said quietly. "People see strange things up there. Cars that shouldn't be there. Lights that don't belong. Some say it's the mountain playing tricks. Others? Well, they say it's the ones who didn't make it off that road still stuck there." I wanted to laugh it off, to call it superstition. But when I looked back toward the darkness of the mountains, all I could see in my mind were those taillights drifting off the cliff, and that truck, waiting for me on a road where it never should have been. And to this day, I'll never drive the $1 Million Highway again. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying road horror stories. The Dalton Highway in Alaska is unlike any road in America. Stretching more than 400 miles through the Arctic wilderness, it was built for truckers hauling supplies to the oil fields. There are no real towns, no gas stations for hundreds of miles, and no cell service. Just endless tundra, biting cold, and the constant reminder that if something goes wrong, you're on your own. I learned this lesson one winter night I'll never forget. I'd been a long-haul trucker for nearly a decade and nothing scared me. I'd driven icy mountain passes, tornado alleys, even flooded Gulf Coast highways. But the Dalton was different. Everyone said you had to respect it or it would chew you up and spit you out. I thought they were exaggerating. I was hauling a heavy load north to Prudhoe Bay. It was supposed to be routine, just another run. The first stretch wasn't bad. Snow flurries danced across my windshield, the kind of light stuff you almost get used to. But as the miles ticked by, the weather worsened. The wind howled across the tundra, shaking the cab, and the road became a sheet of packed ice. By nightfall, I hadn't seen another vehicle in hours. My headlights lit nothing but an endless white blur of snow. The isolation was suffocating. I kept reminding myself there were only two ways out, forward or back. Turning around wasn't an option. Then, about 150 miles in, my radio crackled. A voice, faint, distorted by static. "Anyone out there?" I grabbed the mic. "This is northbound." "Who's calling?" No response. Just static. I tried again, but the line was dead. I told myself it was nothing, maybe just interference. But a knot tightened in my stomach. Out here, a call like that usually meant trouble. I pressed on, gripping the wheel tighter. That's when I saw it. A set of tire tracks veering off the road, cutting into the snow. They weren't fresh, but they hadn't been buried completely either. My gut told me to keep driving, to mind my own business. But I couldn't. Not out here, not where a breakdown could mean freezing to death before sunrise. I slowed down, scanning the darkness with my high beams. And then I saw it. A truck. Half buried in snow, tilted at an angle like it had slid off the road. Its hazard lights were dead, its windows frosted over. I pulled over and climbed out, the cold slicing into me like knives. My boots crunched through the snow as I approached. The truck looked abandoned. The driver's side door was hanging open, swinging in the wind. I shouted, "Hello? You in there?" No answer. I climbed up and peeked inside the cab. Empty. No bags, no logbook, nothing. Just a half-empty thermos of coffee sitting in the cup holder, its contents frozen solid. A chill ran down my spine, and it wasn't just from the cold. Whoever had been driving that truck hadn't just left, they'd vanished. I scanned the snow around the vehicle and spotted footprints. They led away from the road, out into the darkness. My first instinct was to follow them, but I hesitated. Out here, wandering off the road was suicide. I hurried back to my rig, slamming the door shut and blasting the heater. My hands trembled as I grabbed the radio. "This is northbound on the Dalton. Found an abandoned truck, mile marker." I squinted through the frost. "About 150. Anyone copy?" Static. Nothing but static. I sat there, staring into the dark, trying to decide what to do. Then something made my heart stop. In my mirror I saw headlights. They were faint at first, then brighter, drawing closer. Relief washed over me, finally, another driver. I leaned out the window, waving my arm. But the headlights didn't slow down. They grew brighter, blinding, barreling straight toward me. I scrambled to honk my horn, the blast echoing across the tundra. The lights swerved at the last possible second, flying past me in a blur of white. My whole truck shook from the rush of air. I caught a glimpse of the vehicle as it passed. It was another semi, but something about it was off. The windows were dark, the cab coated in frost, and as it roared by, I realized I hadn't seen a driver inside. Then just like that, the lights disappeared into the night. My breathing was ragged, my chest tight. I sat frozen, gripping the wheel until the silence closed in again. I forced myself back onto the road, driving slow, every nerve on edge. The Dalton felt different now. Like it was alive, watching me, waiting for me to slip. Hours dragged by, each mile harder than the last. My eyes burned from exhaustion, my muscles stiff from tension. Then, just as I thought I couldn't take it anymore, I spotted lights ahead, real ones, steady and warm. A truck stopped, the first sign of life in what felt like forever. I pulled in, shaking, barely able to park straight. Inside, the diner was almost empty. A couple of truckers sat hunched over coffee, their faces weathered and tired. I slid into a booth and ordered the hottest drink I could. When the waitress brought it, I asked her if she knew about the abandoned truck back near mile 150. Her expression darkened. She lowered her voice. "That one's been there for years," she said. "Driver disappeared. Search teams never found him. Some say he walked off into the tundra and froze. Others? Well, some say his rig still shows up on nights like this." I froze, the coffee halfway to my lips. "What do you mean, shows up?" She glanced toward the window where the snow blew in thick sheets. Lights in the dark. Trucks with no drivers. Out here, the road has a way of taking people. And sometimes, it doesn't let go. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, staring out at the endless white, knowing I had another 200 miles of that road waiting for me at sunrise. And even now, years later, whenever I hear the wind howling, I swear I can still see those headlights bearing down on me, empty and endless. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying road horror stories. If you've ever heard of the tale of the dragon, you know it's not just another highway. 11 miles of twisting asphalt, 318 curves, steep drop-offs, and not a single straight stretch to catch your breath. Motorcycle riders love it, thrill seekers brag about conquering it, but locals will tell you, the dragon doesn't forgive mistakes. I didn't believe that until one summer night, when me and 3 friends decided to take it on. We'd been road tripping through Tennessee and my buddy Eric suggested we test our nerves on the tale of the dragon. He was the daredevil of the group, always chasing the next thrill. Jake and Matt were up for it too. Me? I hesitated. I'd heard the stories, wrecked bikes left on the roadside, memorial crosses marking the dead. But they laughed it off, saying it was just hype. It was late afternoon when we reached the start. By the time we pulled onto the road, the sun was sinking fast, shadows spilling over the trees. I was behind the wheel of my car with Eric riding shotgun, while Jake and Matt followed in their own vehicle. At first, it was exhilarating. Tight turns, sharp banks, the car gripping the pavement as I steered through curve after curve. The trees blurred by and the adrenaline kicked in. But as the light faded, the road took on a different feel. The shadows grew darker, deeper, swallowing the road ahead. My headlights carved through the forest, revealing curve after endless curve, but nothing beyond. About 5 miles in, I noticed something strange. Jake and Matt's headlights behind us were gone. I slowed down, scanning my mirrors. Nothing. I pulled over to the side at a small turnout, waiting for them to catch up. Minutes passed. Still no lights. Eric frowned. They were right behind us. I grabbed my phone. No signal, of course. On the dragon, you're completely cut off. Finally, Eric said, "Let's keep moving. Maybe they stopped for something." I wasn't convinced, but I pulled back onto the road. We drove another mile or two, winding through the curves, my nerves on edge. And then we saw them. Jake and Matt's car was parked crooked on the side of the road, hazard lights flashing. Relief hit me, until I noticed the driver's side door was open. I pulled up behind them and killed the engine. "Stay here," I told Eric, climbing out into the thick night air. The forest around us was buzzing with insects, but otherwise silent. Too silent. "Jake? Matt?" I called out. No answer. I approached the car, my flashlight beam cutting across the interior. Empty. The keys were still in the ignition, engine running, headlights pointing into the trees. Eric got out of our car and joined me, his voice low. "Where the hell did they go?" I swept the light across the ground. That's when I saw it. Footprints. 2 sets, leading away from the car and into the forest. My stomach dropped. Why would they go in there? Eric shook his head. "I don't know, man. But we shouldn't follow." I wanted to agree. But leaving my friends out there? Impossible. We grabbed flashlights and stepped off the road. The forest swallowed us instantly. The air was thick, humid, and every sound, the crunch of leaves, the snap of twigs, echoed too loud. We followed the prints deeper and deeper until they simply stopped. Just vanished. Jake. I shouted. Matt. Only the forest answered. Then faintly we heard it. A car engine revving. Not ours. Not theirs. Somewhere deeper down the road. We exchanged a glance and bolted back to the highway. But when we reached it, both cars, mine and theirs, were gone. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. The empty road stretched in both directions, headlights nowhere in sight. Eric cursed under his breath. What the hell is going on? Panic surged through me. We were stranded, no cars, no phones, no help. Just the endless curves of the dragon, twisting into the dark. We started walking, sticking close together, the forest pressing in on both sides. Every rustle made us spin around, every shadow looked like it was moving. After what felt like an hour, we spotted lights ahead. A car parked at the side of the road. We ran toward it, desperate. It was Jake and Matt's car. Again. Same position as before, hazards flashing, driver's door open. I backed away slowly, my whole body trembling. This isn't possible. Eric muttered, we're going in circles. I shook my head. No. We never turned off the road. Straight through. It can't loop like that. But there it was, the same car waiting for us like a trap. We didn't go near it this time. We just kept walking, faster now, every muscle tight with fear. Eventually, headlights appeared behind us. For the first time all night, hope surged. I waved my arms wildly, stepping into the lane. A pickup truck slowed to a stop beside us. The driver, an older man with a weathered face, rolled down his window. You boys stranded? He asked. I nodded furiously. Yes, sir. Our friends are missing. Our cars. He cut me off. Get in. Now. We didn't argue. We piled into the back and the truck roared off down the road. For a while no one spoke. The curves blurred past, the forest rushing by. Finally, I asked, have you ever seen anything like this before? The man's hands tightened on the wheel. Plenty, he said quietly. The dragon's taken more than its share. Folks vanish out here. Cars too. Sometimes they show up again. Sometimes they don't. I stared at him, speechless. When we finally reached a small town at the end of the highway, we climbed out, shaken and exhausted. I turned to thank the man, but his truck was already pulling away, swallowed by the night. We never saw Jake or Matt again. Their families filed missing persons reports, search parties combed the area for weeks, but nothing turned up. No tracks, no wreckage, no answers. Just the endless, twisting road. And to this day, I'll never set foot on the tail of the dragon again. Because I know now, it isn't just a road. It's something alive, something hungry. And once it sets its sights on you, there's no guarantee you'll make it out. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying road horror stories.